This is Let's Talk Business with your host, Mark Ebinger. Now, here's Mark.
All right, I'm your host, Mark Ebinger, the owner of Krukus Virtual Staffing, a company that recruits and staffs experienced overseas administrative assistants for insurance agents who need help with policy management, claims processing, and client communication. So if you're curious about the most common tasks that virtual assistants can do for businesses, head over to our website at krukus.com and grab a list of the top 20 tasks that VAs are doing for businesses like yours. The link is in the podcast description.
And I'm your co-host, Genevieve Sims with the Evolve Firm, where we help business owners create branding strategies to help evolve and elevate their business to the next level.
Good morning. This is Desiree Sedana here, and I am San Antonio's premier publicist and nonprofit guru at Philanthropic and Public Relations.
So something interesting about Desiree that I just learned this morning, but actually confirmed this morning, is that you have a thing for pearls.
Yes,
Yep.
I do. So that's my trademark in the classroom. It's part of my uniform, as I say. We've talked about the uniform before. Dresses are part of my uniform. Pearls are part of my uniform.
Yeah. Well, this black shirt is part of my. I think I was wearing this in the
And the
last
last one,
episode.
too. I was going to say
like,
that, but I didn't want to.
I don't know. I was a cop for like 30 years, so between the military and the San Antonio Police Department, and it's like I got accustomed to I've got one thing in my
uniform.
closet that I need to throw on, and I'm good to go.
I usually have a big bun at the top with chopsticks through it, and my daughter opened this little LOL doll, and she said, "Mom, pick your favorite." I went and I picked the one. She goes, "I knew you were going to pick that one." It looked just like me, and so I have a picture where I have my very own LOL doll.
There you go.
So anytime my
Yes.
kids draw pictures of me, it has my hair in a bun with chopsticks.
It's your trademark.
It's
I
my
love
trademark.
It. Everyone has to have a uniform. That's what I've talked about before is they say people have their own uniform. Leaders have their own uniform.
Yep.
It's part of uniform.
Well, thank you
That's
then.
true.
I
Yes.
don't know if I should take that as a compliment, but I think I will anyway. All right. So a quick reminder to follow the Let's Talk Business podcast on all major podcast platforms and social media where you can catch video versions of the show anytime. You can get to everything easily from our website at satalkradio.com. So let's talk for a minute about the Let's Talk Business Mega Mixer that happened. I know, Desiree, you were at a major function you had prior commitment to, so you couldn't make it, but you were still represented at the mixer because your picture was on across all of the paperwork and stuff like that. So, but Genevieve, you were there. What did you think
Absolutely.
of the Mega Mixer?
It was phenomenal. These events just keep getting bigger and bigger. We had an incredible turnout, and people were still coming at the door the day of the event, too. One of the phenomenal things about this mega mixer was that we created a growth-based environment, meaning that people were coming together not just to network, but to help and elevate each other. And that is one of the best things about this event was that we had that expectation.
Mm-hmm.
So when people come in with that mindset of expecting to help each other rather than just passing out business cards, that creates a different atmosphere. And that's one of the best things that I took away from that event was that how can I help you? Who's the best referral for you? Those were the questions I heard throughout the entire night.
Yeah, and we had people buying tickets all the way up till 7:30.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I will say I thought that an incredible element about it was the red carpet and the fact that the co-hosts were going in there and getting people to the red carpet, getting their story out. So I love that element of the mixer. You don't traditionally see that at a mixer.
Exactly. And Indigo Productions did a great job. Allison and Jen,
love
they
them.
brought their equipment out there. And then to be able to have that element, that's one of the things that sets our events apart.
It was definitely a standout point.
Yeah, between the way that they capture high quality content and then, of course, the interviews being done by the show hosts on the red carpet is a really good function. They did a lot of interviews. And then Matt Roberts was the photographer there at the event. His team was. And they captured over 700 photographs at the
Incredible.
event. So there's a whole bunch of content created. And that's what I like about our mixers is because we're there to network, obviously, to make connections, but also to produce content and have a good time while you're there. So good time. The next one will be sometime in 2025. The date is to be determined. So keep an eye out. Make sure you follow us on social media so that you can catch the date of the next event. It's going to be a big one. And then we've got also a couple of secret stuff that we're working on for 2025 too. So I'm excited about that.
Ooh la la.
We've got some really good talent on the podcast team when it comes to events. So I'm excited to see what you guys can put together for a special event.
Absolutely.
All right, so Misty Chance, I'm excited to have you here. We haven't had anybody. We've had somebody else in the medical field, but not quite in the medical consulting field for business like you are. So, give us a little bit about your background and what led you to your company.
Well, I'm a chemical engineer by education. I never practiced. So when everybody thought I was crazy for walking away from a degree like that, and so when I got out, I had to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I got into collections and cash flow consulting, really helping heavy equipment companies perfect their lean processes and things like that to secure their monies. I was introduced to medical AR, and I was hooked. It is statistically the most complicated AR structure that exists in one of the largest economic sectors of our economy. And so it was kind of born from there. I have a business partner. We've been in business for almost 20 years. She brings more of the practice management side, and I bring a little bit more of the analytical, statistic, cash flow, regulation side of the business.
Were you drawn to medical AR, accounts receivable, right? Mm-hmm. Because of the complexity of it. Is that what attracted you to the industry?
Most definitely.
Oh, why?
Because it's the hardest. So in engineering school, one of the things I loved the most was process control, this magic where a man or woman sits behind this computer screen and you have all of these inlet streams and temperatures and pressures, and this person is responsible for looking at all of these variables. Like, I love the Houston Ship Channel. You drive over, the fact that the human mind can come up with these types of things, and then to regulate that process, it seems daunting. But there are people who sit behind a computer screen with all of this data and information coming in from all these different sources, and they can tweak with the touch of their hand a pressure, a temperature, a flow rate to regulate these processes. So I'm a fixer by nature, and so when you look at all of the things that you have to monitor to regulate a medical AR cycle, it is so much more than just pushing the button and sending a claim. It is from the tip of the spear when the patient first comes in the door to all the way on the back end. So you can't really effectively, there's a difference between medical billing and revenue cycle management. So you could medical bill all day long, but to truly manage a revenue cycle, you have to have input and information coming in from all these different avenues in which to tweak the system, close these little windows in which this revenue is lost for these providers. So like a kid in a candy store, it just is statistically the most interesting cash flow cycle. I'm hooked.
Yeah, and your reward in that is solving the problem and increasing efficiency. That's where you get joy out of doing this?
And the relationships. You know, like I said, we've been doing this for almost 20 years. We've got the first ever client that we worked for almost 20 years ago is still a client today. Got clients that are 15 years plus. And surgeons don't stay with you if they're not getting what they're looking for. So those long tenured relationships, I feel blessed that we get to build businesses for a living. I mean, that is exciting to start and build these little businesses and share in these providers' lives, our staff, and the lives that we have impact there, and then in these offices to where, you know, a cleanup comes your way and their back is against the wall. You know, cash or credit lines are tapped, savings are lost. They're months away from not paying themselves. They potentially are closing their doors in 4 to 6 months. And then you're able to come in and you think about all those jobs that you get to save, all those lives and all those car payments and all of those things. There's a huge reward in being able to come in and save somebody's dream.
Wow. I think that's absolutely incredible. And the skills that you're mentioning that you're getting from this degree that is seemingly unrelated are transferable. And to me, that's kind of the brilliance of entrepreneurship, is when you realize you have that aha moment of, hey, I can monetize on this, just the thought process. So, I think that's incredible what you do with your business.
It's a lot of fun. Never the same thing every day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your business is very niche down. So what are some of the advantages that it allows that for your clients as well as your business?
Well, I think we're more of a boutique style consulting firm. We still answer our cell phones. You don't have to have an appointment to call me. Providers will text me. Whether it's clinic management, staffing, depending on what we're doing for a client. I know that starting about 7:30 to 8, my phone's going to ring. And I know that lunchtime hour from about 12:30 to 1:30, my phone is going to ring. And I know the twilight hour between 5:30 and 6:30, my phone is going to ring. And then all my providers know if you're contacting me after 6:30, good luck, because that's family time. Mm-hmm. But leave me a message. I'll call you back if it's urgent. But you kind of got to set those boundaries. But they catch us in between what they do for a living. And so I think that's important that they can just reach out and text, call, I have a problem, something along those lines. Early on, you talk about being in business. Early on, we had some good advice and sounding boards. And I can remember a gentleman back in the day said, "What's your footprint?" And we're like, we can be everything to everybody. And we start listing all of this off. And he was like, "No, what's your footprint?" And we were a year into business. And we're like, this is our footprint. And then as you get a little bit older, you start to realize, no, one, I don't like it. Two, we're not good at it, that kind of stuff. And you really start to get it down. So our footprint is really the business side of medicine. Mm-hmm. So we don't work with hospitals. We don't work with surgery centers. We don't work with dental. We are the business of private practice. So stopping short of what your doc does in the room with that patient, that medical decision making, we can kind of have our hand in just about anything else. Not to be confused that we are not your accounting firm and we're not your IT company and we're not your CPA. We really have a footprint on the business of medicine.
So what drew you to the consulting side of this was your own experience with a consultant, as I recall. Is that correct?
The atmosphere of when to get out of your own way was a consultant coming in. Early on in our business, we have a great startup story from back in the day, but what drew us is we had done a really good job of self-investing and growth within the first 8 years of being in business. And then we got into this, what I call the growth two-step. You grow, you shrink, you shrink, you grow, you shrink, you go, and it's just this breadth of growth that takes place. And we thought, as do I think most business owners, I can overcome this on my own. We can try this. We tried this. And we were really trying to figure out how to take it to that next level at about that 8 to 10 year time frame. And you realize we've tried it. It's not working. And so I think as consultants, you have to believe in what consultants do. Mm-hmm. These are people who can kind of guide you so you don't make all the wrong mistakes, or can pull back the curtains and see things that you can't see being so close on your baby. And so that drew us to bringing in consultants to say, how do we grow different? Because we had grown substantially in the first 8 years, but it's like, how do we take this to the next level? Each time we would try, our foundations would rattle just a little bit. And that's in the term of like your staff satisfaction and retention and stress levels and quality of life. And so you kind of pull back on that growth a little bit to protect your infrastructure. And that was constantly what was happening. And so at some point or another, we're like, you know what? Let's put our money where our mouth is. And let's go find a consultant who can see what we can't see.
That's a really good point you bring on the stress that going outside of, I guess the main focus of the business can put stress on your staff, which is interesting. I hadn't really thought of it that way. We figure, well, if there's business over here, let's go grab it. But if it's outside of what your staff is accustomed to doing and they're already busy, then that puts a learning curve, a service curve, another stressor on them, which is an interesting way. 'Cause, I'm always learning as a boss.
When you're boutique, it's part of that delivery, right? That quality over quantity. So medical billing, I think, gets a bad rap. I do enough cleanup that some of them earn it. Don't get me wrong. But I think medical billing gets a bad rap because it's usually the quantity over quality. It's like we're going to throw all your stuff through and low hanging fruit comes off and so you lost that 100,000. No big deal, right? So we really concentrate on being different as far as it's the quality of our work. It's the quality of our results that keep those providers for decades plus. And so I think when you're looking at the quality of your work, that's not done by me. Mm-hmm. That's done by the people who've been we have great tenureship with our staff. I've got the first ever person we hired 18 plus years ago runs the office. We've got 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. So we built good careers along the way. It's those people. And it's that quality that comes through in what we do. So when you stretch them and they start to rattle, your product starts to rattle. And that's unacceptable when you're looking at the quality of your work.
Now, Misty, let me ask you, what were some of those hard truths that those outside consultants, what's some of the insight that they gave you that was that, jagged pill to swallow?
Oh, that's a great question. The hardest thing was you have this thing that you've invested in. It's like having an 18-year-old going to college, right? You invest in it and you hope you give it the values and the morals and the processes and the thoughts and all of these things. And then you're expected to let your 18-year-old go off to college. So the overall finding, we threw back all the curtains. They did interviews with the staff. We did all of this over a long period of time, a little pre-COVID. And they came back and said, basically, get out of your own way. And for type A personalities, you're being told, like, let it go. This thing you love the most, this thing that you spend all of your time doing, this thing that pays your family or pays, your livelihood and everything else, all these relationships, just let it go. It's a tough thing to do. It was years. We made that change many years ago, and we're kind of reaping those changes now. But to let it go was so hard. My business partner at the time her kids were literally at this time frame, and she sat back. We're very different. So she sat back and she said, it's like sending your baby off to college. We're going to have to send Evolution off to college. And we're going to have to trust that in all of these people, we're going to have to trust in these processes, the core values that we have in place. And we're going to have to sit on our hands. That's hard. You ask any business owner, sit on your hands and watch people bump into each other.
So did they say, like, everyone stay in their lane? Is that what they were essentially telling you?
They told us, get out, create a vacuum. That the reason we would rattle is because it would get up to a certain point and we had all this talent underneath us that we weren't allowing room to grow and breathe. That we had to get out of the way, create this leadership and decision-making vacuum that would allow these people the opportunities to grow into those roles. And again, the difficulty is sitting back from that as a fixer and watching those people make decisions that maybe you wouldn't make the same way, or watching them struggle with those decisions and bump into each other, and something that you could solve in like 5 minutes and it's taking them like a day of emails going back and forth, and you're just like, I want to fix it. Yep. But you can't, because it's like with your kids, you have to teach them those skills and let them grow into it. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, is to take a step back from it and let people grow into it.
In transformational leadership theory, they say there's a spectrum of leadership. And one part of the spectrum is laissez-faire leadership. And they say that's where a leader just kind of stands back and watches. And it can be a good thing, but it also can be a great thing too. So in situations like this, what they're saying is, stand back, let them go through whatever, experiences they need to identify themselves as leaders and have the confidence in your own team.
Sometimes I think of it like how a dad will parent compared to a mom, right? A dad's more like, let them get dirty.
Throw them in the
let
water.
They'll figure it out.
Swim.
Let them fall. It's just what the thing is. And of course, the mom wants to protect and nurture and all of that kind of situation. So, but there's a danger of abdication that can come in there. So where do you draw the line there?
I think that's been the growth for us, is learning when to get involved and when not to get involved. That's case by case. Every situation's a little bit different, but letting them learn, how do you answer that email to a client? When do you let them solve that problem? Usually at this point, we've been doing this now for many years. So all the foundations that we laid early on in 19, 20, 21, and so forth have grown to the point that usually we get involved if we're starting to see it kind of go in a direction where we can just tap it back into place, or if it's a contract negotiation with a client or something like that. Or the beautiful thing, when they ask. So we've created this, hopefully this environment to where they realize where they're comfortable and where they're not comfortable. And when they ask and say, you know what, will you review this email before I send it? And then we get called in to do that. The fun part is that now it's really the visionary part that we get to go in and, or I get to go in and do, which is the team building and the continuing education and the marketing side, and just really enjoying those aspects of it, because I'm not sending all the emails and monitoring everybody.
Yeah, you're not busy being busy, right? I get that. And as you're talking about that, I'm thinking about one of my employees, Abby, she's leading up the HR recruiting side of things, and how she's running a lot of that stuff. But then she'll come and she'll ask, Mark, I need you to review this email or whatever. But she's operating that unit on her own, pretty much like 95% on her own, which is really cool to see that. It's almost like parenting in a different spot. You know, the rewards that I feel from that are awesome. So, and it allows me now to be more the visionary and work on the business as opposed to in the business.
And that, that comes with the evolution of your company, especially when you're trying to scale. So I can completely relate to you being a type A personality, to have to sit on your hands and hope and pray that everything, the foundation you set, they actually heard it, like your kids. Like, did they actually hear what I told them to do? But I want to touch back again how you came to that moment and realization where you needed a consultant. And, to have a business coach for any business owner is so crucial and so important. And it took me a while to figure that out, too, when I started my business. We're 14 years into it. But, the first few years, it's like, I can do this. I can figure it out, learn as I go. But then to have an outside perspective and identify those areas that, if I was on the opposite side, I probably would have seen it too. But like, again, you're so close to the picture. You're so close to the baby. You can't see. And so I love how you took the time to do that, because for any business owner, they realize that that's going to take time and investment to take you away from the everyday tasks that you're doing to grow your business and to actually do your business, right? But then to also step back and then plan, evaluate, reanalyze, and make adjustments. That's a pivotal moment for any business owner. And that's actually a real big key to the success of scaling. So I love how you touched up on that.
So where businesses that you work with, where are they typically getting stuck? What's the biggest problem they're having?
So with a startup, it's, I can do it. I could do it. I'm a doctor and I'm trained to see patients, but I can do it. Well, most of the time with any business startup, time and money, right? So you go to a bank, you get a line of credit, you do all of this to start up a medical practice. Well, that only lasts you for a certain amount of time. So you're really on the clock on getting your practice going. And so you pay people to do what you don't know how to do, or you don't have time for, or you don't care to do. So in this instance, you pay somebody a little bit more than what your sweat equity is worth. And as a doctor, your sweat equity is worth a decent amount. You could be seeing patients, but you pay people because it's going to take you 2 to 3 times as long as it's going to take us to get you credentialed and contracted. And you've got to have those contracts in place in order to see patients. Day one, we walk in the door, you start your revenue cycle moving, right? So that's the biggest one. We get a lot of people who try it and then it stalls, it takes forever, they're down the road, and they've already handicapped their startup. because they're the time, at this point, I'm already paying the lease. I already have the employees. All that tells me is that there's a hole in the bottom of your bank account and that your monies are just leaking out and you have no faucet filling it back up, right? That's the time delay. So they just need to realize that there are people who are specialists at this who can save time and therefore money. For a cleanup, we've got a really good, ideal cleanup story, and I think it says a lot about cleanups. So there was a large practice, about 3-4 providers, two to three, and they had been kind of circling around us for all the years. It's a pretty small market out there in San Antonio, so it had been kind of swirling around. You'd talk to them and then they'd go off and so literally years later, they come back around. And one of the reasons why it took them so long is that the managing physician was anti outsourcing of anything. And so that's one of the things. It's when you think that you have all of these pieces in place, knowing it, having people who know it is one thing. Doing it is a completely different thing, because you hire a lot of people. Any of us who've hired employees know you hire people because they know how to do it, but then you don't get them to do it, and that's part of the HR problem. Overseeing it is something completely different. Mm-hmm. And so I think any business that's in that situation, that's what I would tell them, having somebody who knows it, getting them to do it, and then overseeing it. So unfortunately, they don't pull doctors aside and say, let me teach you how to keep your pulse on your revenue cycle, which is your engine that takes you everywhere. Right. And so I think that's part of it. They don't even know the questions to ask to hire the right people. They're not looking at the benchmarks and metrics on a regular basis the same way I, as an engineer, am looking at those revenue cycles. Like, I get data inputs so every week or every day, I get an AR log from all of my billers. And this is just on the revenue cycle side. And that tells me the dollars that went out, the monies that were posted, the AR that was called, and all the fixes that went out. And then, are these monthly duties taking place? So an inlet stream from all of them. I mean, I walk into them every morning. They send them at the end of the day. I walk into them every morning. At the end of every week, I get an oversight log from all of my management teams, the drivers, if you will, for these revenue cycles. And they are telling me bigger pictures on what's going on. If a medical provider were to look at that, and I would even challenge in some instances office management, were to look at that, they're not going to see the same trends that I see as a person who has been managing and looking at revenue cycles for 20 years, or the eye of the engineer on the back end of those revenue cycles. I can take that data, because it's my team, and make little shifts and adjustments and go, hey, you know what? We need 2 fixing days here because that box is getting a little bloated. Or, hey, y'all need to do this. Let's pull back on this. And making those little decisions on those revenue cycles, that's every day that those happen. And unless somebody's watching the revenue cycle, the business of medicine is more difficult. Not that it's impossible. It's just more difficult than it ever has been. If you think about it, medical providers haven't gotten a raise in 5 years.
Wow.
Their overhead is going up every single year with the staff shortages and hourly wages. So what that means, you better convert your work into cash if you want to be a viable business. And that has to be done differently than it was even 5-10 years ago.
Do you see AI? Because you're talking about all of that stuff, monitoring all of that data and interpreting that data. Experience matters, because you have a lot of experience in that area. Do you see AI creeping in and helping in that?
Oh, that's a whole nother show. So let me go back to the manual part of it, and let me circle back to the AI. So the manual part is teaching your division managers, your drivers, to look at those same metrics and make those same decisions. So we meet with all of the staff and we do the end of month rundown, and we're teaching them how to look at those variables. And I would put my billers above some of the practice management that I've seen over the years in their ability to identify these and make shifts on their own. So teaching that is part of what we do at Evolution. On the AI side, I would love to stay an old hippie. And I'm kind of a little anti-technology, a little anti-social media type of a person. I'm sure there's a place for that. And maybe somebody who has a little more interest, know-how, can get in there and do that. For me, though, I'm still paper girl. I'm a manual. I like the numbers. I like that decision making. I see AI coming in more with software systems and clearinghouses, some of the big guys who can invest in that type of thing. We, as a consulting company, are reaping the benefit of their investments. So not necessarily that they're ours as much as the tools that we're using have those built into them.
AI has an exceptional ability to aggregate information, go through it, but it's still very poor, in my opinion, at actually giving a human representation or that sense that we get about whether things are good or bad or accurate or not accurate. And it can just be flat out wrong. And when you're overwhelmed with data and you get an answer that seems like it could be right, oh, let's go with that. But then it's not actually interpreting the data correctly, and you have no idea because you're handicapped by using the software. So we're kind of in this weird space right now where we're putting a lot of trust in that. It's more and more, and it's going to be faster, I think, over the next few years that people are going to get into that space. But there's a danger in there, too, that we're not actually going to be accurate.
Let me give you an example. So let me take 3 vascular surgeons, right? And they're op notes, 3 of them. They all do a thing called IVUS, right? And they each document it a little bit different. And we have no claims issues on these surgery charges for or vascular number 1, and we have no claims issues on the insurance payer code auditing software for vascular number 2. Vascular number 3, all of a sudden everything comes back and it's denied for lacking medical necessity or it's not documented well. So you push and you push and you push and you find out that one of these payers has implemented AI as their scrubber of these op reports. So it turns out, and this takes a lot of digging. This is the quality over quantity, right? This is a lot of digging to hound those payers and get this kind of information. It's one word on the op report that AI doesn't like, and it's pullback. Does not like that word. So this is where you take that kind of information, you bring it back to your provider and say, here's some other examples. Can we change maybe how you're documenting this because it's slowing down your claims because of this AI automating, code auditing type stuff. So we fight it as much as we use it. Of course, there's a lot of little tools and tactics on the back end to help fight those kind of things. But that's one example of where bigger companies are using this AI to minimize their FTE on a problem, and it's causing problems downstream.
Wow, the negative words. Those are the negative words. Pull back. And a lot of companies, as AI is still developing, there's still in every industry, we're learning about all these different negative words and negative prompts of what not to use. And even now in the schoolrooms too, there's actual programs to screen the kids' essays to make sure it's not AI, so it doesn't get rejected. Like my son, thankfully his report went through clear, his was good, he got an A, but half of the class was all AI generated. But they now equip the teachers with those tools to make sure.
Oh, we've been using AI for a long time. I can tell you I've been in higher education 10 years, and we've had that for, I would say, about 7 years, where we upload our essays from our students, and it will catch what parts are plagiarized. It'll highlight and tell you to the percentage it's plagiarized, where it's plagiarized from. AI has been around a long time, but what I've learned is you really have to learn how to command it. And if you don't know how to command AI, it can be very difficult. Now, I will ask Misty in the sense, I love that you're like, you know what, I'll do this analog. I don't need to go to AI to give me analytics, right? That's the easiest thing for people to do. What type of analytics do you use? Are you using progression type of prediction, or with that data, are you using statistics, or is it just expertise of time that you're using to identify and triage?
So for let's say an audit as an example. So we have a proprietary algorithm that we use for an audit because one of the biggest questions we get asked is, where should I be? I looked at these benchmarks and MGMA says I should be here and ZEPCO says I should be here and and they say, well, where should I be? That's a difficult thing to answer because every practice, their cash is king, right? So what we call a gross collection percentage is king. So cash collection, where should they be? It's a percentage. It's as unique as a fingerprint because it depends on so many different variables you're putting in, like your set build charge, your payer mix, your contracts, your CPTs, all play into that. So when we do an audit, we're able to extract the data that we want out of a client software, and then you run it through this weighted algorithm that weights it, and it spits out a number within an accepted standard deviation. This is where I'm a little bit of an engineering nerd. And it basically sets their fingerprint. So then once you set this fingerprint based on their real data, you're able to go back and pull out the old data and you're able to quantify a difference. And you're able to say you're leaving 7% on the table. By closing these little windows, you can pick up 7% off the table, doing nothing different but fixing what you've already got, not marketing or any of those things. So on one level, it's picking those data points and then understanding how to calculate those.
Right. So like analysis of variance, you're saying, I'm going to go look at differences. So you're going to get data. And that's my question. Mm-hmm. Are you going and using statistical type of formulas like, okay, I'm looking at difference. So if you're looking at difference, you run like an analysis of variance. So that's saying, okay, I'm comparing two things. If you're looking for prediction, you're going to go for a regression, where you're looking for, again, does this process create success, predict success? So you are using then those type of statistical analysis to help better these companies.
And then on a regular ongoing cash flow, I think it's points at any one time because it's one of those, like, a cash flow cycle is always changing. If I ran you an AR today, after posting today, that AR has changed. We put charges on, we took it off. So it's very much a continuous, as an engineer would call it. You have batch process like we do beer, and then you have continuous process where we turn crude into gasoline, right? So it's such a continuous process that what we want to do is take snapshots in time of what that process is doing, and then with that data, start letting us know where it's balanced at. So all the information that I get on a regular basis, those inlet streams, the logs from the billers, the weekly oversight, all that data, you lay it there in front of you. And I never really thought about it because it just kind of comes. You just look at it and go, oh, that's high. You need to go do this. Or you got money sticking in the 60. What's going on in the 60? Things like that. So I would say snapshots in time, just like you would an engineer taking a look at that process control panel. That temperature in that spot of time, that's high. That needs to go down. Or look, we're losing pressure here. So it's just really that snapshot.
I love that. Absolutely. Expertise takes you a long way. I believe in quantifying, quantifiable numbers, but expertise really takes you places that numbers sometimes can't.
When I was studying to be an engineer, my dad is an engineer as well, petroleum. And the best advice he ever gave me was, baby, be a practical engineer. And he would give me the example of being practical. And he said, and don't you dare go into one of these places and think that because you have a degree that you are smarter than the technicians who run that piece of equipment, because they've been running that same piece of equipment for 20 years. And when it dings a little like this, they know to tap it a little like that. And when it goes off a little like this, they're thumping it over here. Grab a hammer and hit it this way. If you go in with ego and you pretend you think that because you're an engineer, you know better than those technicians do, your beeper's going off every holiday, every weekend, and they're going to sit back and they're going to watch you struggle where all they had to do was tap it a little like this. Mm-hmm. So I would agree.
You highlight an interesting concept because you've got being practical, being vocational, right, as opposed to being theoretical and educated. people who are educated, highly educated, they tend to have this arrogance, but they don't have experience. So coming out of college or coming out of wherever that they've got these accolades coming into a world where people have been working for decades without humility is a great way to not to be, I guess, create a mess wherever you're at. I saw it a lot in the police department with people who are highly educated that can get to a leadership position, but they don't know police work. And it's damaging to the citizens that we serve when you've got somebody who doesn't know what they're doing that's leading people who do know what they're doing, but they're causing a mess. Anyway, I've got stories behind that one.
I love it.
We'll leave it there. So, so when it comes to customer acquisition, tell us about that process. If somebody's coming to you because they've got a particular kind of problem, how do you sell that service?
So for many, many years prior to us implementing, we have a marketing division which helps with, as you can imagine, startups and cleanups. Their digital footprint is a mess, may or may not have a web presence, print materials and things like that are non-existent. So the marketing department was born because I was going out and I was shopping all these services on behalf of our clients. And I thought, man, for startups and cleanups, they can't afford this. And so ours is specifically targeted not for every industry, but for our clients. So we are a medical practice management firm that has a marketing department versus being a marketing firm for medical practices. So that's a very big difference. So when they got in there, then obviously they took a hold of our website and did all this and they've just done a wonderful job, even with our business. But we used to joke that we were probably one of the more successful, unheard of consulting companies because we never really marketed. It was all word of mouth. I mean, it's been a very organic growth from day one. And it was, docs talking to other docs, CPAs, attorneys, whether it was what we call professional divorces, where their practice is falling apart or breaking apart. And so you get a referral there, or CPAs who are clients are coming in asking these questions on a regular basis. And a CPA, you talk about experience, unless a CPA is in that revenue cycle, they're a big picture on the numbers. They're not going to be able to go in and tell you, this is why you think you're working harder and making less. Mm-hmm. They don't know the answer to that. They just know what the doc is across the table saying, I'm working harder and making less. So in order to help them kind of get into those numbers, that's where like an audit or something like that would come in, and we go in and take a look at those acquisitions. People are looking to buy practice. You want to know what you're getting. Most M&A people can't do that either. They can take a look at assets and some of those things, but they can't tell you what are you getting and
Right.
what's hidden in that AR cycle. What skeletons are you buying? Because when you buy tax ID, you're buying the skeletons too. So it's kind of important to get in. So really, it was a lot of word of mouth growth. I think we're just now hitting at the push of marketing, which is why I'm here, right? My marketing team said, you should do this. We'd love to hear you talk, and you need to get out there and do more of these. But really at their push, they're helping us brand our 20 years. We've been in branding it now for about 3 or 4 years with the marketing department, and kind of branding what our type of consulting is at MD Evolution.
Now, it seems to me that I don't know if you're already doing this, but it seems like meeting or getting to know people in mergers and acquisitions would be a good thing for you, networking with those folks, because when they run across, this buying and selling of a medical practice, you would be a good resource for them, it would seem. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. You got to know what you're buying. And sometimes it's not in the best interest.
And bringing in a standards fractional CFO is not going to do it, not at the level that you're talking about doing it. It's very, very specialized that way. Cool. I like that. Now, you brought up word of mouth versus marketing. This is a question I think, Genevieve's in the branding and marketing business as well. Word of mouth is good. People will say, I referrals, that's how I get my business. What do you think the advantage of, because obviously you're doing it, you're marketing now. Why marketing versus just word of mouth?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that we've worked really hard over the last 20 years to put quality over quantity, to have a reputation that means you're not going to get the path of least resistance. You're going to get somebody who genuinely, in some instances, cares more about your money than you do. And I think that you don't necessarily, I think that branding aspect of taking your baby and putting a label on it and saying, this is a quantity, this is a thing, this is the value that comes with this name. And I think that's where it's a little bit different, because when you're in the operating room, you're talking with another surgeon and he says, hey, you really need to talk to these people if you're struggling, and then they call. I mean, that's a great way to get business, but it doesn't necessarily perpetuate the kind of growth when you get from a very small, like when we were small and we were self-investing. So Evolution was started in less than 60 days and for less than $3,000. And it was self-grown. We didn't get our first line, or we didn't get a line of credit. We had no access to outside capital until
Bootstrap
we were
business startup.
right, until we were about 8 years old. And so every ounce of what we made went back to reinvesting it in this consulting firm. At this point, there's a little bit different. You have more than just 2 or 3 families that you're supporting at this point. I think I have like 49 staff. I mean, that blows my mind to think, well, maybe you're not as a small business like you used to be. I still feel small in my world of what we do. That's 49 families and 49 people who have their own career aspirations, who want to grow, they want to develop. And I feel like my job in what we do now is to bring those opportunities to do that for 49 people. And I think that's the difference, is that you can grow based on word of mouth, and you're going to continue with that kind of one foot after the other, kind of slow and steady, but that's not the right way of putting it. Or you can kind of invest in the marketing side a little bit and let people know the best kept secrets.
Right. I think that just went where I was going to jump in, and because there's growth, which is great for the company, but there's also a responsibility to people everywhere to say, hey, this is a really good service that you need to know about. I take issue with nonprofits not doing enough marketing. Drives me crazy.
I agree.
There's one local one that I'm getting to be a huge fan of, and we looked at their marketing and their social media, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This is a great service you guys are doing for the community, and you're not shouting it from the rooftops. You're not doing it properly. So there is a responsibility in doing effective marketing. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. The educational piece. That's very important in creating
And celebration.
Yeah, and celebration, creating that trust, that loyalty, creating that message of what your vision is, and being able to be relatable to your target audience. That's very important.
It's that human element. You know, we're all humans here, right? Highlighting, your staff, highlighting, the work you're doing in the community. Are you guys involved in like community efforts here in San Antonio as far as like nonprofits and things like that yet?
No, a little bit more in the New Braunfels and kind of a smaller. So we'll get a group together to go do a fun run for a good charity or something like that. And the marketing department does a pretty good job of like pushing us to do those, and then taking pictures of our team building and things like that.
Yeah, New Braunfels is growing like crazy.
It is. It's slowly becoming, part of San Antonio.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't tell them that. They're not going to like that at all.
They want
We
to
are
keep
not
their
going to
own
like
ideas.
that. No.
They're-
I saw a commercial for New Braunfels the other day, and I don't traditionally watch a lot of TV, and I was super surprised. Here's a commercial. Come to New Braunfels. It's a great place to be. Had some cowboy in front of Green Hall. And my first thought was, don't air that. don't air that. So I told my business partner about it, and she goes, that's the last thing we need is more people flooding into New Braunfels.
It's coming whether you
I
like it
know,
or not.
I know.
That
but
whole
Change is
corridor
happening.
between San Antonio and Austin is going to get, it's going to be populated.
It was one of the fastest growing counties in the state, maybe even the country. I may be getting my stats a little off, but it is unreal how much growth. So when I moved into my area that I live in, there was, and this has been, I don't know, almost 10 years ago, there were less than 400 homes on the ground. there is close to 2,700 homes on the
Development
ground.
happens quick in rural areas. We have seen that all across Texas, and but New Braunfels has always been kind of a little satellite of San Antonio, but I think it's a great town.
Well, Schlitterbahn is going to love it because, I mean, they're going to be constantly sold out. That place is going to become a mega. It's already a mega park, but I mean, like a mega attraction up there, which I think is good. Look, it's inevitable no matter what. So. All right. Well, Misty, if folks want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
I would have them visit the website, mdevolution.com.
All right. Love that. So what did you think of your appearance? How did it go?
It was easier than I thought. It's very conversational, and the advice that I got from everybody was once you get started talking about something you're passionate about, you're going to forget everything else is around. And that was very true. Y'all made me feel very comfortable. Thank y'all.
Yeah, and you did a great job too. I think explaining your points and then, giving enough of that, industry verbiage out there that the people that are most interested in evaluating whether or not you would be a good fit for them and be able to help them out would be able to see, yeah, okay, she knows what she's talking about and she's been around a minute. So, which is one of the goals of having you on here, so that we have people that will get business literally years after, a video is up on YouTube. Somebody will run across it and they'll be like, oh, okay, that's the person I want there. So, all right, great. Well, thanks, Misty, for coming in. I appreciate that. Great job. Great job, everybody. All right, as we wrap up the show, quick reminder, check out our latest podcast and catch a video version of the show anytime by visiting our website at satalkradio.com. That's going to be it for this one. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you on the next one.